My name is Francisco GAZITUA. I'm in my 70s. I'm a sculptor. I've been making sculpture from a lot of years, some 50 years of my life. I did philosophy first, and then I changed. And I make a deal with sculpture that I think I have never failed. Um, you know, I work in big and small, and I've been in a lot of places making sculpture, mainly in Chile, South America, South Andes. I live in the Andes, in a quarry, in a mountain, and I've been very happy in my life being a sculptor. The first things I have to confess. Then, after studying philosophy, I enter um, the Faculty of Fine Art of the University of Chile, and then I went for a scholarship of British Council to London, to St. Martin's School of Art. I was a student for 1 year, and then I was a lecturer, you say professor, or for 7 years there. And that was the tip of the avant-garde in sculpture in the 70s. St. Martin, with I worked with Anthony Caro, Philip King, Tim Scott, all that lot, and investigate until I felt that I had to come back to my mountains. So I have been here in Chile for, I don't know, some 40 years, working and sending my sculptures, public art, especially to anywhere in the world. I don't know. In Great Britain, I have some 3 or 4 big sculptures, and in Sweden, Mexico, there's a curriculum. If you want to see all these boring things like biography, you can refer to www.franciscogazitua.com. And so I don't bore you with all this information. But anyway, I work 12 hours a day. Stone and steel and wood are my materials. My message, I think I would say the deep message of my sculpture are these South Andes, with culture accumulated here for 20,000 years. The Spanish came here 500 years ago, but the culture was installed in these valleys of the Andes before, and it's very solid and very unknown. So if you ask me for, what's your message, I would say these fantastic mountains, the culture they have created.
public art that you did in
The public
Toronto?
garden. Um, well, the thing about public art is the first thing you have to consider, and I consider as a very important things, is the people, my interlocutor. You know, the people who will be around the sculpture for the rest of their lives. And I work in durable materials, so they will be there for, I don't know how, it could be 500 years or whatever. So I consider that. So it changes, sculpture changes uh, because of the people. You know, if I'm talking with Mexicans, my message will be different because, or slightly different, because I know that people. For example, I've done a bridge in a sculpture bridge in Canada, in Toronto. And the message of the bridge was to put together part of a city who had been separated by the, um, the Canadian Pacific, you know, this kind of mythic, poetic railway who united the Pacific and the Atlantic. So, you know, I made it specially, you know, in the forms that so people can walk and feel that they're, you know, they will be looking at the St. Lawrence River and all that. Um, then, for example, I have done my last sculpture, it's a big thing, who commemorate the 500 years of the Magellan circumnavigation. And I did it in South Patagonia, in Punta Arenas, in the Magellan Channel. So it's quite different. It's a kind of a map of the world, map of that time, you know, 500 years ago, basically. And the ship is inside and pointing to the west, because that was the rumbo, you know, the direction of the trip. One day, Magellan started from Spain, and he navigated west all the time, and he came to the same point. So science changed, everything changed, and the, the place who make the, you know, the possible the trip was the channel in Punta Arenas. So it's a big, very big thing. You can, if you can see, circumnavigation, that's the name of the sculpture. It's the last. So public art is concerned with a conversation with the people who will be added, no, who you add your sculpture to their lives. Somehow you change the life of people putting one sculpture in the in the in the public place. The other thing, the materials have to be durable, and you have to be in contact with engineers and not be ashamed of that. Artists, you know, if you think that Michelangelo made the upper part of San Pedro, uh, you know, he worked with engineers and with everybody. The same with Bernini. You know, we have to lose this thing of a romantic position of the artist and become engineers, become everything. The thing is, you put your sculpture in public space. You know, you have to be a bit of empresario, entrepreneur, good for, you know, for bank accounts and all that, you know. And again, don't be ashamed of that. You know, art is sculpture is a language that pays the bill to a lot of other disciplines. Well, the same with cinema and other things. That's more or less about public art. Well, that start very early in my life. I grew in the countryside, and the country Chilean, Latin American countryside wasn't touched even for the Renaissance or for science. It was a I would say, the mental state of the people in the country, in the big haciendas, the big farms, was, I would say, medieval or something. Even before, very, very mixed up, the between, early Spanish and Inca, Quechua. So my first work of art was a little knife I make at the forge, because there were no fabrics, there were no shops, nothing. You have to make everything there. So if you consider that I have to go to the forge, get a piece of steel of an old tool broken, then beat it in the anvil with heat, make the holes with punches. There were not even drill bits at the time, um, and then put some wood as handle. So it was my first combination between wood and steel. The rivets had to be copper, because if there was steel, they would be rusted. And I start when I was, I don't know, 6 years or something, and I make this little knife for carving wood. I went to the woods around, get the little pieces. So I make bows, arrows, the things that a kid will like. So I learned how to work wood and steel when I was very, very young. Um, so that marriage is in my blood. When you learn, when you have 6 years, and you start sort of feeling that wood have to be between your hand and steel, because steel is violent. It's very far from it's very far from human nature. So you put a little piece of wood, so it's hot, it's gentle. You start knowing wood as a very close creature to our body, to our bones and everything. We are close relatives to wood. When stone is the same, because we make with the yeah, I would say that the place where the hens and animals come to drink water, you make it in stone, because they were more durable, even for grinding the corn and everything. Was stone, wood, and metal were very close. So then, of course, I went to school, to university, and all that. And parallel to that, I have always a little studio with my forge and everything at home. My family was more or less rich, so I live in a place surrounded by so I make noise, and it wasn't very pleasant for the neighborhood. But anyway, I keep on working, and and then I wanted to make sculpture, and my family say, "Well, you can't make sculpture because that don't exist." So I studied philosophy. It was good for my head because it put some order in. But again, coming back to these combinations of materials, everything in everyday life is the materials are combined. Very difficult with very It's very difficult to find one material. yeah, Tour de Eiffel, and some architecture from the beginning of the 20th century is still. Um, so then, I end up in a quarry um, with a lot of wisdom about working steel and working wood, surrounded by wood. So I work with what I have at hand, what it was handy. And I compare that with my British masters, all these 60s, uh, like Anthony Caro, they work with what they have handy. And it was scrap, just scrap steel. And the same with Andy Warhol, for example, in New York. He worked with anything, with rubbish. So surrounded by the materials I live with, the natural thing was to combine them, and it have taken me a life into to find the good marriage between them because it's hell difficult. It's not because steel is always a very violent, and stone or wood are kind of so it got to do with the behavior of matter. Matter is after Einstein. Um, Matter is a mystery, and it shows in very different ways, and a sculptor has to be very respectful of that. You have to be a mystic of material, otherwise you will be a barbarian. Okay.
What inspires you?
Well, I'm going to quote Rodin say, there is no inspiration, it's only transpiration. But anyway, I know there is inspiration. As Rodin's inspiration was the human body, of course, the spiritual forces of human body. Um, it's a tremendously big question. It could be divided in a lot of aspects, like the content, for example, of my sculpture that have been varying. It have been evolving during 50 years. If you look at my web page, you will see a progress. But I would say, it's a mixture because I can say, it could say, it's a combination between the nature who surrounds my life, and sculpture itself, with all the traditions. And when I say all the traditions, the European tradition, of course, um, I'm saying the American. If any one of you have been in our museums, for me the best is the Anthropologic Museum of Mexico. Um, I would say that's all inside of me when I work. That's my inspiration, half of it. And the other half is nature itself. Every summer, even in the winters, with my woman, my wife, Angela, we we have horses here. To have horses is not a rich man thing, like in Europe. They're kind of, I don't know, uh, domestic animals. And with these horses, we have in the mountains, the Andes is huge, it's enormous. We have we have done a way of 1,000 kilometers, but from one, from one river to the other. It's the mountains are tremendous here. So Then from the mountains, it's mining, a lot of mining. You get the steel for working, the forms, the simple forms of the mountains, of the trails, the way the water runs. The water runs here just in here, what I'm looking is Rio Maipo. It get born at 5,000 meters in three volcanoes. And it runs down in a way that is not like a Seine or the Thames River, that quiet way, or in Brazil, the Amazons. Here is kind of violent. So it's a lot of that as well. Um, then about water, water for me is very important. I I did a sculpture in the Antarctica in a big iceberg, and I stayed there for I don't know 11 days working with an axe and giving forms. So well, I was solid water, and it got to do a lot with the Andes again, because the Andes submerged in the sea and reappeared in the Antarctica. So I would say, Viva, what is your inspiration? I would say Andes Mountains, basically, with all what they provide.
What are you working on right now?
Ooh, that was a good question. I'm making a bridge. Um, it's for a foundation of handicapped people. You know, every kind of all kind of handicap. The people who can't walk, can hear, can see, and they have, it's a fantastic institution. It's kind of private, public, and they are situated in a very old part of the city in Santiago, and so they have these two houses, one in front of the other, in an old house, in an old street with cobbles and. Um, so the problem is that handicapped people can't cross the road. So I have to make the bridge between these two buildings. And this is a sculpture bridge of 18, no, it's 20 meters long, and it will be painted red. Because look the coincidence. There is a poet, Chilean poet, is a Nobel Prize called Paulo Neruda. He wrote part of his books very close to in the same street, in Calle Maruri. Um, he wrote one book called Crepusculario, very close to the place of putting the bridge. So it's an homage to Neruda as well. So that's my, and it completely changed because it makes a big wheel, and the bridge starts from the wheel, and the wheel could be the wheel of a wheelchair. So everybody who passed there would say, "Oh, this is handicapped." So when I say about when I was explaining about public art, in this case, I'm not considering one I have in Oxford, who was done by for the dance of Oxford. Different. This is for handicapped people. The one in Chile have done a lot of other big sculptures, but all for specific people. And so this is my project. I'm very enthusiastic. It got my studio completely full because it's 3 meters by 3 meters high and say 20 long, with a lot of sculpture integrated in the design. So that's my last.
ritual?
Absolutely, yeah. I will say that for being a sculptor and being alone in your studio during 12 hours a day, you have to be a mystic. And it took me a long time to confess that. But I think as I becoming older, I'm saying yes. Yes, it's a way of integrating to the biggest mysteries, because I'm not only surrounded by the atmosphere, by I'm not only in the biosphere, and by night, I'm looking at the stars. It's a fantastic observatory because there is no much light around. So I know I am in nature is sacred, matter is sacred, and the only way of being stuck with matter 12 hours a day, and by night is the same, because I mean, you wake up, stars and big mountains surrounding me. For that, you have to be a mystic. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. No, otherwise you there's no. When you say what's your inspiration, is the tremendous mystery. I born one day, and then I'm going to die. I know I'm going to. I don't know what galaxy I'm going to go, but I'm yes, I'm very spiritual.
You
Yeah.
live in isolation. You live far away from urban areas. How do you connect with
Well, I
people?
have my family here, who's very important. That's the people. It's a personal relation who enrich me. My wife Angela is an incredible painter. So she paints on top of my studio. Right? Um, that will be the first connection. Then I'm connected with I don't know how many, but a lot of sculptors in the world and in Chile, of course. And I'm not far from Santiago, which is the capital city. And when I need tools, materials, and things, I I try not to go. I send people, but for exhibitions and things, I go to a city. I would say once a month or something, because no, sculpture is you have to give all the time to sculpture if you want to be one. So my connection with people is well, a lot of friends. And the other thing, sometimes I have students sent by professors somewhere, from I don't know, Germany or Mexico or Costa Rica. So I'm very well connected, and with the necessary time for connections, because my language is sculpture. So I'm connected with all the sculptures installed not only in Chile but around the world. I'm talking with people. I'm talking every day with people in piazzas and streets, and even in private collections.
Your
Yes.
parents, how did they realize that you were
Well, they
talented?
were quite, they were very cultivated scholars. My mother was very, very intelligent. The same with my father. He loved music, and he played piano. Classics. No, there was a first reaction, uh, because if you think that the first 10 years or 15 years, I sold my first sculpture when I was 40 years old. So for parents, it's quite difficult to believe, to have faith in what you're saying. When I started, I was in my teens. I was, I don't know, 20, 21 year more or less. And they say, okay, but do something. Okay, I will do philosophy. Okay, yeah. I give my title. I say, look, I'm going to be a sculptor. Because the noise at my studio was at home, was all the, was, I was, you know, hammering the whole day. So, no, they understood that it was in my genes. But then they, yeah, I had to earn the living as a teacher, sculptor, making whatever, fences, working in the building site a lot of time. We have a very difficult moment in Chile, We have this coup d'etat, the Pinochet and all that was tremendous. But anyway, that made me hard, kind of, hard worker. But I would, if I had to give an advice to fathers, please trust the intuition of your sons and daughters. Please, because normally this intuition, what are even out of the establishment, are the destiny of somebody. Destiny. You say, well, you are very spiritual, yes, because I believe that you came to the planet to do something personal, incredibly personal, so personal that is a mystery. But in that mystery, there are some lights, and these little lights are your destiny. So don't come on top of your kids saying, look, you have to, because if you want to be happy in this life, follow your destiny. There's no other way, no other way.
I
Okay?
saw that in Canada you also did some stairs.
Stairs, yes. Well, that's another, it's another uh, theme, I have collaborated with a lot of sculptors nowadays that with the following thing. I think, the avant-garde of the 20th century make us reject all the art in the city, or I would say our traditional fields, who was making fountains, staircases, whatever, windows, gates. That was a property of sculptors. If you see, for example, follow again, Michelangelo, Rodin, The Gates of Hell, the tremendous work of art, I would say. No sculptor had done something so incredible as the Gates of Rodin. So we say you make, not only have make stairs, but I make a lot, because I think it's our property. Otherwise, it will be made by architect, nothing against architects. But the great thing about us, that we have the touch, our hands are touching the stone, we know the weight of things, we know, we talk with things, we talk with the stone, and we know that in that part you don't use that stone because, etc. We have a wisdom in the. I make fences and again, I will going to quote Paulo Neruda, my poet, said, a poet have to be able, or ought to be able, to transform anything into poetry. I would say the same to sculpture. Good sculptor ought to be able to transform anything in sculpture. So I don't no, I don't have problems in that. On the contrary, I'm very proud because wherever I have gone, I say on top of having this culture, can I make the fences? Can I make the etc. Staircases? For example, the staircases of in Canada are the a threshold, you know, for a big sculpture who's called Rosa Nautica. So you see the sculpture stepping up in part of the sculpture, which is a staircase. It's a kind of a way of access to the sculpture. Okay?
You live in a quarry.
Yes.
What's it like to live surrounded
But
by
it's
stone?
again, stone is not. It's like I don't know. All the stones are different. My stone is granite. It's you know, in the family of plutonic stones, come from the magma, and are made out of mainly out of silica, and they born some 50 kilometers down my house, and the first sensation when I came here, because I used to come here to buy stone. I said, well, I better buy the quarry. By the way, to buy a quarry here is not like buying a quarry in France. It's just a piece of mountain here, and nobody likes very much to live in mountains. So anyway, the first thing I felt here that it was somehow isolated by the forces of the center of the earth, who's made out of steel. I live in another part, in another mountain, who was red. So it was communication between the center of the earth and the soil where I built that house. And I couldn't sleep at night because there was so much energy coming. When I came here some 35 years ago, I felt it was beautifully insulated, sorry, from the forces of the earth. That's the first thing of being not only surrounded by stone, but stepping on a kind of a glassy material like this for electricity. You use glass. That was the first. Then the other thing is that everything in the house is made out of out of stone. I make sculptures for a lot of waste, and all these little pieces of stone make the ground of the house and the gardens and everything. The staircases are stone. Everything, you know. Um, is I was talking about Andy Warhol, but when I was in New York, there was so much rubbish around. Not rubbish, but you know, so much things. I say, this man worked with the thing he had around, surrounded by. I would say, surrounded by sheep for me. But anyway, you know, he's a great artist. So be surrounded by stone is, you know, compel me to work in stone. Yes, I would say that that will be the second thing of stone. There's a lot more. The other thing is that the knowledge. I'm not careful about the material. Material for me is free, and that's another advice for sculptors. Consider the material as just stuff, you know, as nothing. Because if you start being careful about it, oh, I use it or not using this piece because then it's so expensive to buy. I would say it doesn't work like that. You have to make a lot of mistakes and make them. break stones and, so that would be another consequence. The generosity of living in a quarry, it makes in me incredible freedom. So I can improvise. It's not. I almost don't make drawings before, because to make a little drawing is to make the sculpture. So you go to a stone, say your idea, start hammering and doing the thing. That's more or less.
Do you have a favorite sculpture?
The problem is that my favorite sculptors are all anonymous. I say, well, quote, Anthropologic Museum of Mexico in Mexico City. But I would say, come to, if you see the Museo Precolombino here in Santiago, or Museo del Arco in Lima, Peru, there's no signatures there, but it's so powerful. It's as powerful as I was. I can't say that I was not a friend, but with Henry Moore. I visited him a lot of time because a lot of reasons before he died, and he said, "What are you bloody doing here?" Because it was, uh, America, Latin America, South America is the continent of sculpture. So please don't look at my things. And, uh, they are all inspiring in your pre-Columbian sculpture. So I can't name you. There are no names. It's like in Gothic cathedrals, we have the best of Europe. There's no signature. And that anonymous way of working is the best. Ooh. Because at the end, who will, in sculpture, will go and see the signature? This is just commercial. It's a bad thing. And here, an advice for young sculptors or young artists. In my times, you were an artist because you have to be. But now, the first thing the kids do is go to galleries and try to be famous. And the scheme for sculpture, or the way, is not the rock singers that will be, famous for 5 years and then thrown in the rubbish bin. So, and this anonymous way of working is fantastic. And the only way of guaranteeing a work is not caring about the name. But anyway, my great admiration for all this French generation, like Rodin, Brancusi, all that, I admire them tremendously. And then all the Renaissance and early Greeks as well in the European, and then Indian sculpture, you know, from after Alexander the Great. I don't know, that will be 5th century until 16th century. That were fantastic centuries there. That's more or less my.
Your name is Francisco Gazitua.
Yeah.
What does Gazitua mean?
It's a Basque name. Actually, Chile is we are very mixed up here. The Spanish came 500 years ago. Our other ancestors came 12,000 years ago through the Bering Strait, and they walk from it. So I'm a good mixture of both. In GAZITUA, in Vasco, I don't know, some 6 generations ago in Spanish time, came this guy called GAZITUA, who means the place of salt. Gas is salt, Itua is place. It's La Salina, where you get the salt out of the sea. That's what it means. In Francisco is even better because if you say what is your San Francisco, for me San Francis is another prophet, I would say, of the size of Jesus Christ and all the others. So I'm very proud to be named my name, Francisco.
How do
Remember?
you want history
Huh?
to remember
He,
you?
well, I'm going to. We're talking about San Francisco, San Francis. He didn't. No, he wrote phrases, and the rest was written by others. Um, I think as an example for all the artists, he was an artist, maybe the best. No, no. Uh, is the other way around. Actually, history is about studying the memory of humanity, and historians take sculpture as a primary source and the best source to tell the story of to tell the history of a civilization. If it wasn't for Greek sculpture, for example, it would be very little traces of what how was Greek. So it's the other way around. I would say we are the one who put this kind of say the ethos, the we mark the places with our sculpture, and so we are the one who somehow um, put the basis for history, for historians. Now, no, I don't think it's important for an artist to care about how no, there is a lot of artists who make museums of themselves and foundations. I don't want to make a single foundation or a museum. My things are in the streets or in the houses of beloved friends, or well, even good collectors. But I don't think it's the work of a sculptor to waste one only minute of his life to try to be remembered in that way or the other way. No, yeah, a very short. What else? Yes, I'm very happy, and I haven't seen a lot of people saying the same. Normally, and I can't understand that. Normally, people is some are fantastic, but especially kids. The kids come to the world as full of gracia, grace inside. They have a light inside, and then they go to these horrible schools and they kind of square them, and they lose the light. And if you say, if you ask me, I would say my life have been a fight against being encapsulated, and who's encapsulated or kind of framed will never be happy. Terrible, but it's like that. So I can say that I'm very happy, and because I fight for my destiny, and I depend it every day, and I've been through very miserable economic times, but I'm being happy because I know I'm doing my thing. No, happiness for me had to be with destiny. Ah, well, it's again, and art is about that. It's not about being famous. is not about making beautiful things. Sometimes you make beautiful things. It's not about being remembered. It's even sculpture was the temptation of, because we make with materials. Egyptians, if you go to a British museum, you will see these huge Egyptian things that look like new because they are made out of the same stone and work. So we have the temptation of say, we will be eternal. But I'm not in that. I'm not in because no, no. Art is not about being famous, being eternal, but it's about follow your. And everybody knows that. There is a call inside you, inside of every human being, that to 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 show the light you have inside, and that has been my sculpture to me. Open somehow, with my hand, working and boom, putting. This proves that I'm being happy. I don't believe in in this romantic aesthetic position of the artist. The art you have to be suffer to be tuberculosis. I don't know. All that. If you read just all the marvelous romantic novel or post-romantic, Barsac, all the great writers, they put the artist as a kind of very unhappy, making everybody unhappy, and maybe, producing a good work of art. But, okay, well, thank you so much. Well, thank you very much. Very nice, very intelligent questions, by the way. Okay. Thanks again, and thanks to all the people who had the patience to listen to me. Okay.
Okay.
Ciao, ciao, adios.
Adios.
Adios.